I'm Rebecca Dawson. Thanks for spending a few moments with me while I share with you some really beautiful and profound insight that the Masters have been sharing with me recently about how to maintain your sense of sovereignty and truth while also being in relationship with another. So as we move more and more into our own awareness of wisdom and self, one of the things that's really important that we step into with our sovereignty is truly believing oneself. And it's not about believing a particular point of view or believing an opinion per se. It's actually trusting that whatever arises for you in that moment, whatever your truth is in that moment, can be believed. And that is such an important thing for us to be able to embrace, to really bring us into our own greatness. Because oftentimes, the more awakened we become, the more we start to notice that other voice in our heads. The more we become the witness for our experience, the more we tend to notice what are the thought patterns and what is the ego, what is my true consciousness, and what is programming. What is the voice of reason and what is the voice of truth? And so oftentimes, the more self-aware we become, the more we're aware that there's a couple of different perspectives or voices going on within us. And that's why it's always so important to really believe ourselves. Because the more awakened we become, oftentimes the more confused we can become. Because where in the beginning there was just one voice, suddenly now there's two or more. And this is also the case when we start to become conduits for information as well. It can become very difficult to distinguish. So for those of us who are really becoming very conscious at this time, the Masters have been consistently giving the advice, you must believe yourself. Because when you become aware of that duality that goes on within you, it can become so confusing that you don't know what to believe. So oftentimes it is the sense of believing oneself and being in agreement with oneself. No matter where you think that voice is coming from, that sense of agreement and that sense of union, yes, I agree with what is happening with me, without necessarily acting on it, but just the agreement that that thought is there. This feeling is here. This opinion is here, is what is really important. Because when you really believe yourself, you're actually affirming your own existence. And that's a very powerful act. Because when you affirm your own existence, I believe myself that this is the thought that I am having. I believe myself that this is the emotion that I am having. I believe myself that this is the perspective that is happening. In that moment, there is something magical that happens because in that moment you are fully conscious of your own existence. And quite often, whatever you believe is a problem that is occurring in that moment can tend to resolve itself, or you begin to feel quite at peace with whatever is happening. You're now in the is moment of the I am. So the first thing about believing yourself and your perspective is very important at this time. It's your announcement of existence and it's your step into sovereignty. But what happens when you're in a relationship and you have a completely different view or opinion or sense of truth around a situation than someone else? Now this is interesting because it's a wonderful act of consciousness to truly trust and believe oneself. But what happens when you come up against someone or if you're facing someone who's saying, well, no, this is what I think and it's different to what you think. Or this is what I feel and it's different. Or this is how I see the situation and it's different to how you see it. In those moments when you're facing somebody and you're looking at something between the two of you, you're going to have different perspectives of it. Of course. That's what enables our third dimensional reality to exist. The fact that there can be different perspectives of one thing. Otherwise, everything would be two-dimensional. We need different points of perspective to enable our reality to exist. The issue has been, in the Master's view, and I would tend to agree, that when we move into relationships with people, we tend to think that we are in opposition to them. Opposites match, yin and yang, complementary parts to make a whole, and so on. But in doing that, we're actually standing opposite someone, creating a charge, and therefore we're in now a loop of exchange, contractual arrangement. I give, you take, you give, I take, and there is always a point of balance that's required to maintain harmony. So how is it that you can maintain, I completely believe myself, and yet the other person has a different point of view? How do you navigate that in a relationship? Because when you're standing opposite somebody, this is the yin and the yang, the duality, someone must be wrong and someone must be right. So how the masters have offered to assist us with this is they've described so beautifully that as we move from third dimensionality to fifth dimensionality and beyond, instead of facing somebody else, both having different perspectives and there needing to be someone wrong and someone right, you can now actually really be in a wonderful creative relationship with somebody. But instead of facing them where you can only see what's in front of you, you now stand back to back. So if you're standing back to back, you can still feel each other. You can still lean on each other when you need to. But now you're so close to each other because you're both at the center of the reality that you're creating together. One of you can see 180 degrees into this hemisphere of your reality. You can see 180 degrees in this part of your reality, and together you can now see the whole view. So in other words, in third dimensionality, two perspectives took you from something flat to something solid, because there's a left eye and a right eye. Something that was two-dimensional is now three-dimensional. Wonderful. That's an enhanced experience of life. Now in fifth dimensionality, we stand back to back, not in opposition to each other. But now this view, the 180 degrees of one of you and the 180 degrees of the other you, now gives you a fifth dimensional view. So again, it's enhanced experience of reality. And you can actually share your view with your partner. What do you see over here? Oh, this is the way I see the situation. What do you see? Oh, this is how I see the situation. Oh, now we have the full view. Now we have a greater depth of what it is that we're sitting in. We have a clearer view. It's high definition. So nothing is discounted. It all adds and amplifies now to what is available. So that's the shift in relationship from 3D to 5D. Instead of being opposite and making something flat into something solid, but still having an opposing perspective, you can now each have your own individual sovereign perspectives. And when you share them with each other, you have a greater sense of life, a greater sense of wisdom, and really being able to live the essence of what is available here. So that's the next phase of evolution in human relationships. So nobody's wrong. You can both completely believe yourselves, and when you compare notes, you now have a much bigger view. So you can be in total appreciation of the perspective or opinion or thoughts or beliefs of whoever you're in a relationship with, and it can just add to a fuller view and experience of life. So to me, that's beautiful and exciting. It really gives us a more tangible way in relating to be able to be in agreement with ourselves, and thus in agreement with partners or other people you're in relationships with, whether it be family or intimate relationships or working environments. Because now it's about enhancement and amplification of your view. Nobody's wrong. It's all valid. And now we can see so much more. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope it's helpful to you. May you have an amplified view in your world today. Thanks for joining me.